Story time. Story time. So when I was doing my master's degree work and I was starting to get into my research, I had delusions of grandeur. I have to admit it. I thought that what I was going to do was create this incredible piece of research about the effects of narcissistic leadership on followership. I knew that I had the answers. Okay. Call me Eddie, all the answers, Francis. I just knew that what I was going to do was going to create this intellectual pathway to understanding this problem. And I was going to get contacted to talk about this, maybe media opportunities, but I just knew that I was going to come up with such a great answer that people would not be able to resist looking at the work that I did. I'm dead serious about this, by the way. I mean, I really, really thought very highly of the work that I was doing. Now, that's actually pretty common. Folks who are pursuing their master's degrees and doctoral degrees, a lot of us, we just fall in love with the work that we're doing, the research that we're doing. And so my bubble got burst one day. The person responsible, my wife, who had earned her PhD. She had gone through this process a couple of times, right? She had gotten her master's degree, she got a PhD, and in both cases, she had research that she was doing. The PhD research, of course, a bit more of a heavy lift. And as I was talking about this research that I was doing and the problem that I was looking to solve, she said, "Well, you're not really going to solve the problem." And I'm thinking, what are you talking about, woman? Yeah, of course I am. I have this stuff that I'm doing. I have this research. I have my case study that I'm going to do. I'm going to solve a problem. I'm going to solve a big problem. Okay. Narcissists are going to fear me because of the work that I am doing. I know I have the answers to this. And she said, "Well, you got part of the answer." And so I'm starting to feel a bit discouraged, because I know she had been there, done that, bought the t-shirt, wore the regalia, did the walk, and got hooded, you know, figured it was time for me to listen to someone who knew the lay of the land. And what she explained to me, Halima did, is that when it comes to research, you're not necessarily solving a problem. You are addressing a problem. And the work that you're doing isn't necessarily the it's not exactly the period at the end of a sentence. It's kind of, and I'm saying this in my own words, it's kind of a comma. Because what's happening is that you have this research question that you ask, you address the question, and then in addressing the question, you set it up so that somebody else picks up the ball and they continue that research. Now, there is a part of the problem that you can solve in doing your research, your academic research, by the way. There's a part of the problem that you can solve, and that is honestly answering the question, but it doesn't necessarily solve an entire problem. Even in cases when you've had people who have done some research where they have found the cure for something, there's still something else that needs to be done outside of that cure, right? And so, after I put my ego back together, um, and I had to fend off resentment, I realized what exactly she was talking about. The thing is that I learned in that conversation that you're not a hero here. I mean, you may have, again, a part of the answer, a critical part of the answer here, but you're not the hero. You're not going to come flying in your cape and just you be able to tell everybody everything there is to know about that particular thing. So here's the good thing about academic research. And this is how academic research actually keeps people in check in a good way. First of all, you have your research question. Now, in having that research question, a huge part of it is that you have to do is call a literature review, a lit review. You're going to hear people call it that, right? That already keeps you in check because you already don't necessarily have the answer. You're not the expert on it because you are building your case off of other research. You have other people who have talked about this in some way, shape, or form. So you already know that you're part of a team sport right here. You're not the one with the answer. Now, of course, you go through your data collection. You have the way that you do the research. It could be a case study. It could be interviews. Blah blah blah. There are all these terms for the research methods. But here is another critical part of it. The other critical part of the research that you're doing is the fact that um, you actually do what's called, you discuss your limitations, the limitations of the research. Now, the reason you do that, that is a good way of saying check yourself before you wreck yourself. In other words, you are actually being accountable for explaining what parts may have been missed or what pieces of the puzzle that you just didn't have at your disposal at the time. So you're just saying, hey, look, I have an answer, but I don't have the entire answer and I don't know everything because there are so many other pieces, right? And then there's this other part of research where what you do is you provide recommendations for further research. So you are saying, I am not the caboose. I am a car in this very long train. And in doing that, you are not the person who has the answer, but you are a link in a chain. And what you want to be is you want to be a strong link. And it's not that the work that you're doing isn't important. It's not that that work is not extraordinary in some way. It could definitely be. I mean, it's important because you're already dealing with academic research. It could be extraordinary, and you want it to be extraordinary. And it's not that your contributions aren't significant. And so the reason I tell you this story is one of the things that I think really compromises our ability as a community to deal with societal issues is when somebody stands up and believes that they have the answer and they want everybody to just shut up and they want them to leave them alone with their answer. They want to stand out. I'll explain to you why. You see this a lot on social media, as for example, people have this desire to be right. So what they're saying to you is, again, let's use the example of academic research. They're saying to you, my research is right and your research is wrong. There's no such thing. Now, it could be that somebody's research is pretty well thought out, pretty well done, and somebody else's research is sloppy, but it's really hard to say right and wrong. And what we get on social media is people do the Facebook dissertation on something, and they have this enormous desire to be right so that they can tell you that they are the ones with the answer. Case in point, Saints season. Our New Orleans Saints not looking so good this season. So what do we have? We have the people who are the masters of the sports world, especially football, who get on Facebook and they tell you, I know exactly why the Saints suck. And they give you the reasons that the Saints suck. And you try to jump in and say, well, it could be this too. Nah, I know what it is. I know what it is. It's this the play calling. The play calling is the problem. And, I see problem. Well, it could be that draft pick. No, it's the play calling. I'm telling you, it's the play calling. And no matter who tries to contribute to this conversation, this person wants to own both the problem and the solution. So why is it that people are so obsessed with why are they so obsessed with wanting to have the answer? Why are people so obsessed with wanting to stand out? According to CPD Online College in England, this is actually a result of cognitive distortion, which they define as a negative pattern of thought that gives you an inaccurate perception of reality. So, this person who is telling you that he knows for a fact what the problem with the Saints is has this inaccurate perception that what is going on with that organization is his reality. He is telling you that he now does this person work for the Saints? No. Has this person ever coached football? Most likely not. Has this person played football? That's a possibility. Is this person some sort of leadership expert? Doubtful. But in their Facebook dissertation about what is wrong with the Saints, they have their reality. That's it. And that's all you need to know. They have it all figured out. It makes sense though, because I think one of the things that fools us into having this perception of ourselves, and let's stick with social media right now in this sliver of conversation. What happens with people with social media, I think, is that let's say that social media is like the Apollo. There's no Sandman. You are sitting there and you are typing what you type. You're doing your video or you do your podcast or whatever, and you in your world, you have the answer, and you just need to stand out, because if you can stand out with the answer, then you get worshiped, or you have the power of Facebook or something. Or for a lot of people, your business, whatever your business is, you're going to make money on that business, or you're going to get all the clicks and all the views so you can make some money, right? So there's always whatever motivation that there is for this. And the thing is that you are at the Apollo, you're trying to win this talent contest, but there is no Sandman to give you the hook when it's you and your laptop or your mobile device or whatever it is you are typing your dissertation on. And the thing is that cognitive distortion has you believing that you have it all figured out. Now, the reality is that cognitive distortion is not unique with a certain group of people. It is something that a lot of people do. The other thing, and I really need to make sure that we understand this, because I don't necessarily want to quote unquote villainize these people, is that cognitive distortion isn't always bad according to CPD Online College. As a matter of fact, while we know that people who have this cognitive distortion can have an inaccurate perception of reality, and it can cause, these problems. It can really cause it to provide inaccurate information or something like that. The good side is this: is that when you have people who are very confident in what they're saying, let's put it that way, um, is actually something that motivates people. It makes us competitive in cases, especially in situations where it is a must to be confident, right? Think about the doctor or the nurse. Think about the airline pilot, or someone who is a pilot of a watercraft. These are situations where people have to make definitive judgments, and they have to be right. Otherwise, there are going to be some problems for a lot of other people. They have to be very confident in what they're thinking. So they have to have the right answer. Business, finance, law, government, all these areas where people have to have the right answer, and they have to get as close to the right answer as they can possibly get. So they have to be confident in their ability to come up with the right answer. By the way, you're listening to The Way Forward. I'm Eddie Francis, and we are talking about the fallacy of really thinking that you have to have the answer to a problem, and how that can negatively impact our ability to deal with societal issues. So we have that. The thing is, though, we do have to stay focused on why having the answer, why having this cognitive distortion can be highly problematic. The thing is, we get obsessed with hero narratives. And for a lot of people who want to have the answer, they want to be the hero. It's understandable. I get it, because especially on social media, Social media enables us to get around a lot of barriers that, in a lot of cases, are not necessary, right? Think about somebody who is trying to get that job and their voices are just not being heard. So, what they may do is they may use some sort of whisper campaign at work, or they may use the internal social network that their company has, or they may get on social media where they know that their boss or their colleagues can see them, and they can use that to break through stuff like nepotism. Or there are a lot of times um we have to kind of be a hero for ourselves so that we can break through colorism, racism, classism, bigotry, discrimination, just so that we can get a sliver of an opportunity to break through all of these things that are not right. We see the obsession with the hero narrative go left. And a lot of times when it goes left with leadership, particularly in the Black community. I've worked at 4 HBCUs and I have colleagues around the country. We talk all the time about HBCU presidents. And one of the things that, in my opinion, that some of these folks who want to be presidents, who have been presidents, or who have not done very well at presidents, one of the problems that they've had is they've wanted too badly to be the hero. Church pastors, community organizers, nonprofit leaders, elected officials, people who believe that the most important thing that they can do is to have the answer, to be the hero. And part of the problem is us, our view of leadership. Our view of leadership tends to be one where we see a leader as someone who has that single influential voice. They point, we go. Think about how many times people have asked a question over the course of the years: who's the next Martin Luther King Jr.? Why does there have to be a next Martin Luther King Jr.? I'm really glad that we've gotten to this point where we have recognized that Martin Luther King Jr. did not do what he did in the civil rights movement alone. Even though he was the one who paid a pretty hefty price, obviously, but he didn't do it alone. He didn't get the results by himself, right? But for the longest, people kept asking this question: who is the next one? When the question should have been, what's the next generation going to look like? What's the next iteration going to look like? So, what happens in these situations with the everyday people, coming back to the everyday person who's on Facebook during their New Orleans Saints dissertation about why they suck this year? The problem is that whenever people compliment them, these people start to view themselves, the people with the answer, they start to view themselves as the inspiration of a generation. And then they start to honestly believe that they have the answer to all of the questions. One thing that I've said before, and I'll say it again, and I say it all the time, it is something that is a belief in leadership studies, is that the first commandment of leadership is self-awareness. When folks like that, the ones who believe that they have the answer or they have to have the answer, when they lack self awareness, they can create a lot of problems. But it starts with their lack of self awareness. It starts with the fact that they do not understand why they are causing problems by trying to have the answer or to be the answer. They're not aware of their insecurity. They're not aware of their need for validation. They're not aware of their need for control. They're not aware of the anxiety that is causing a problem. Now, when they are more aware and they insist on having the answers, then it could be very helpful to a group of people, to a community, to an organization, to a team, because there's this desire to be helpful, this passion for wanting to provide solutions. It could be someone who's just that smart, that intelligent, that talented, or they're just that persistent about trying to resolve issues that surround people. But that lack of awareness, though, it just does so many things that can cause people to just tap out. So think about when you have the Facebook dissertation person, they are writing what they're writing about why the Saints don't why the Saints aren't having a great season. They are determined to be right. They're determined to be the person with the answer. The person who is writing about the next round of midterm elections. They're writing about who the next, Democratic nominee should be, the next Republican nominee for president should be, and they're trying to explain to you why they have the answer here. And they will not let anyone else contribute to the conversation. What problem are they causing exactly? Because it's not them doing this isolated thing where we get to say, yeah, all right, fine. This is how it works in your world. I'm gone. I just won't. No, that is a part of it, but that is a small part of it. The bigger part and the problem that they're causing is that they're discouraging other people from participating. They're alienating other people. They're coming off as narcissistic. They're coming off as selfish. They're coming off as untrustworthy. Because think about it. If this person obsessing about having the answer and standing out is alienating people, people who are alienated do not trust other folks. The other thing that they don't realize they're doing unwittingly, and think about this in the context of the workplace, painting a target on their own backs by making themselves solely responsible for something that other people could help them with. Think about the last time you had someone at work who just insisted on having all the answers. And you said, okay, go ahead with your bad self. You got this. Go ahead, do it. Make it happen, Captain. Because you know what? I tried to help. You want to hear it? Go ahead. Wrote a song about it. Want to hear it? Here you go. You got fired. I mean, it's it becomes an incredibly frustrating thing to try to contribute, especially if the person who insists on having the answers actually does have some great points. And you want to help them build on those points and you want to help them try to solve the problem. But they are making it about them, nothing about you. You're listening to The Way Forward. I'm Eddie Francis, and The Way Forward is on WBOK 1230. Make sure you listen every Saturday, 3 p.m. Central Time, 1230, WBOK1230.com, the Play Old app. So what do you do? What's the way forward here? What do you do with these people who believe that they have the answer? Well, first of all, let me talk to the person who believes that you actually have the answer and you want to have the answer. I hear you. I see you. I get you. I'm not mad at you, but I'm concerned about you. The thing is, I say that success is a team sport. And on a serious note, in this socio-political climate that we are dealing with, where we are having, where we are showing from the highest office in the land, just a terrible tendency to want to keep people apart. If you're the person who insists on being the hero and having all the answers in this climate, what you are preventing from happening in some cases, because this is more about having an answer, this is actually more about an attitude. You're preventing a pooling of resources. So the way forward to me is that number one, in order to break down this having all the answers thing, you've got to recognize that, especially right now in this climate, There's a need to pool resources and to create an atmosphere of trust among people if we want harmony, if we want community wide progress where everybody eats. The other thing you have to recognize is that when someone insists on being the hero, it's easy to take that person down. And it's easy to take down an entire community of people. Because when you have someone who insists on being a hero, then that gives people who are not for you an opportunity to cause dissension. Point out all the flaws. Point out every single thing that that person has not done right. Don't focus on what they've done right. Focus on what they haven't done right. And what they keep when they keep themselves in front, then they create an atmosphere where it's easy for everyone else to peel off and say, well, yeah, I ain't like listening to them anyway. The other thing is that you have to realize that it is much tougher to break people apart when everyone is investing in each other's strengths as well as their own strengths. I did for my research, I actually did a case study of the Fire Festival. If you don't remember this, the Fire Festival happened in 2017. It was supposed to be this big luxury event that wasn't a luxury event at all. People pay thousands of dollars to go see to have this luxury experience at this concert with these exclusive acts and celebrities. And it actually wound up turning into a public health crisis. Um, but what happened is that the person who created the Fire Festival also had this media company. And the thing that was his best friend was chaos. Chaos was his friend, dissension was his friend. Because as long as he was able to cause chaos among a group of people, then he was able to make sure that not one person understood what the other person was doing. He also made it very difficult for people to communicate with one another. But what happened, the way that he was taken down, was when a group of folks from the media company decided to call him to the carpet together. And not one person had the answer. They all had the answer. And that's how they were able to resolve that issue at that time. So, what do you do now? Where do you go from here? So, for the person who has either the answer, for the people who know someone who has the answers all the time, do you know someone who always has the answers? For those people, I'm going to leave you these 7 things. Number 1, if you're one of these people who believes that it is important for you to have the answer, ask yourself, why is it so important for you to have the answer? What exactly are you trying to accomplish? What do you want for yourself? Do you even want anything for anybody else? And if you don't want anything for anybody else, why not? Second thing, listen more than you talk. My favorite leadership quote is hit the ground listening. Because the more you listen, the more you can understand what's going on with other people. And you start to realize that even if your answer is the best answer, there are still other answers that can contribute to solving a problem. And you can still look good. You can still be the person who heard enough to elevate your answer, but then also to elevate those other answers. And at least you're the person who is responsible for creating some consensus. You're the person who is a significant voice in a beautiful chorus. The third thing is learn what common pain points are with you and other folks. I'm actually going through this right now. In my community, there is a utility issue that is being shared by all the neighbors. And so we are all trying to figure this thing out. I know when I sat in the last community meeting, I know that a lot of those folks in there probably do not have the same ideology as me, but we do have a common pain point. And that pain point is this utility problem. And so this is an opportunity to, again, build consensus, but this is also an opportunity to really beat a problem that, quite frankly, is kind of a Goliath for us. The other thing I would say, the fourth thing that I would say is Take time to get to know other people's motivations and their strengths. You find out what they want, you find out what they're good at, you put it together with what you want and what you're good at, magic. Fifth thing, learn how people's talents, knowledge, expertise complement yours. It's like a puzzle. It's like they have one piece of the puzzle, you have another piece of the puzzle. You put those pieces together, you have not one great answer, but two great answers that all fit. Maybe there is something about what they understand that can really fit with what you understand. And then the sixth thing, correct others in love. Be patient with them. Don't be so obsessed with calling people out when you disagree, but call them in. Make it silent. Have that private pull aside discussion. Take the time to understand. Seventh, and finally, acknowledge your answers can be better today than they were yesterday. I'm going to leave you with this thought. And this is probably one of the most important thoughts that I could have. If you're someone who is one of those folks who you believe wholeheartedly in having the answers, you're trying to lead. I get that. And I'm with that. And I'm cool with that. If that's the case, then this last thing to hold dear and hold to your heart is learners lead and leaders learn. The process of being better never stops, but it does involve people around you helping you.